Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. Liverpool lost 4-3 to Bournemouth at the weekend, and I'm going to try and make sense of what happened. Here we go. So unless you have been living under a rock or getting your football news through Facebook, you will know that Liverpool gave away a 2-goal lead in the last 15 minutes of their game against Bournemouth on Sunday to lose the game 4-3. And it's safe to say that the reaction from most of our fans was not very mild. You had the usual scapegoating, saying the keeper isn't good enough and saying that the defence isn't good enough. You had people blaming the entire team, and you had people saying that our title challenge was over altogether. One thing you didn't have was people blaming the manager, but since we've had Jurgen Klopp, that isn't really a thing that happens anymore. And to be fair, with 15 minutes left to go on the pitch, there isn't really much that Jurgen Klopp can do apart from sit and watch as his team capitulates and gives away that big lead. But really, you only have to look as far back as the Burnley game to see that such a defeat isn't as bad as it actually seems, and such a massive reaction isn't as warranted as you might think it is. For example, after we lost to Burnley 2-0 earlier in the season, some people were saying that Liverpool had actually gone backwards under Jurgen Klopp. And when you think about it, if at the start of the season someone had offered you third in the league with only 2 defeats, you would have bitten their hand off for it, especially knowing that we're also in the semi-finals of a domestic cup. So what did go wrong? In my opinion, this game was just another example of how Dejan Lovren only plays well when he's got a good centre-back partner. Last season we saw this quite a lot, as when he was with Mamadou Sakho or Kolo Touré, he performed well and he looked calm on the ball, and Liverpool were a lot more solid at the back. When he was put with Martin Skrtel on the other hand, who is just a walking penalty giveaway, he didn't play as well and he almost looked like he didn't know what he was doing with his own 2 feet. And it's a telling stat that in 3 games without Joel Matip in the league this season, Liverpool have conceded 9. The same amount they conceded in the 11 games that he has been in the back line so far this season. With all the talk of Liverpool being a one-man team when Coutinho went out, little were we to know that people were in fact right, but they'd got the wrong player. Should Liverpool dip into the transfer market for a new centre-back in January? I think if Van Dijk is available for whatever money, there's no reason why Liverpool wouldn't buy him. I know that Jurgen Klopp is the kind of manager who prefers coaching to transfers, but if we are to mount a title challenge and be serious about the cup tournaments as well, Liverpool need to expand their squad, because as good as Lucas is, he at the end of the day isn't a centre-back, and also it's quite good to be able to bring him on later on in a game in the midfield for a different striker to actually calm the game down. And that was one of the problems that Liverpool had against Bournemouth on Sunday, was they didn't have a defensive midfielder of Lucas's quality to bring on, because he was of course already on the pitch playing in the centre-back role. And then there's the one player that most people were blaming for the defeat on Sunday, and that is Liverpool's new goalkeeper, Loris Karius. Obviously, it is a massive mistake that he makes for the Bournemouth winner. Spilling the ball in that kind of position and giving it straight away to a Bournemouth player is not something you can do in the Premier League, especially if you want to be challenging for the title. However, I think as much as we can criticise him, and as much as he hasn't massively convinced in Liverpool games so far, he has had some good performances and he has had a few clean sheets. I think it's far too early to be writing him off and saying we should sell him, and I think dropping him would have a terrible effect on his confidence, and Jurgen Klopp should simply stick with him and see what happens really. And there is of course the reason that many people say we should stick with Loris Karius, which is the David De Gea effect. And David De Gea, as we all know, was pretty awful when he first came into England. He had a terrible first season and actually had a lot of the same problems as Loris Karius. He was dropping crosses, he didn't look confident, he was trying to do things with his feet that he didn't look like he was actually capable of doing. But now, as we know, he's matured into one of the best goalkeepers, not just in the Premier League, but in the world. And also, he actually made quite a similar mistake to Loris Karius in West Ham's game against West Ham in the League Cup on Tuesday. And at the end of the day, if the defence isn't performing as badly, and I think it is largely the defence's fault for the first 3 goals, then that mistake only makes the scoreline 3-1 and we barely even talk about it. It's just one little thing that gets mentioned at the end of the match for about a minute, let's say. So all in all, it's not the end of the world. This is only one game in a season of 38, and while it is a crushing defeat, what's important is that Liverpool bounce back from it and show that it was just a blip and that it's not going to affect their confidence too much going forward in the season. So that's all for today's video. I'll be back on Friday when I'll be building up to Liverpool versus West Ham, where the Reds will hopefully bounce back from their defeat on Sunday. Thank you very much for watching. Bye for now.